Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for our wonderful webinar regarding creating financial security for a loved one with PWS. Thank you so much for taking the time out of the middle of your day or the beginning of the day, depending on which coast you are living on. My name is Dorothea Lance. I'm the Director of Community Engagement with PWSA USA. Most importantly, I have a 7-year-old son who is living with PWS and lived this journey with all of you on a daily basis. And I'm so excited today to be joined by Ivalio Grigorov, who's a financial advisor and special needs parent to Luca, who's 8 years old and has a diagnosis of Prader-Willi syndrome. So after 15 years as a store director at Target, Luca inspired Ivalio to change career paths and pursue special needs planning. Evalio realized that families like ours can benefit from a comprehensive plan that can guide them through years and can ultimately maximize a child's overall quality of life. His team primarily works with families who have a loved one with disabilities that require some sort of support, not only now, but in the distant future. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and Evalio, welcome.
Thank you, Dorothea. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. I know we have varying degrees of participation. As Dorothea mentioned, my name is Ivailo Grigorov. I'm with Northwestern Mutual, financial advisor. I've been in this line of work for the last 8 years or so. I was inspired by Luca, who was actually 10. Luca turned 10 in November. So today I'm going to share a little bit just as a parent, some tidbits that we have done, able accounts planning, things that are important to us, benefits, and also from the lens of a financial advisor, things that families should be looking out for and some tactical things to help you with. Before I get started too deep into it, I want to thank Dorothea and Stacy for allowing me the opportunity to host this webinar. I know I've presented in the past at some of the conferences. Dorothea and I were chatting right before the webinar started. Is we live in exciting times between the recent announcements on new medicines, FDA approvals, all the advocacy work. We feel like there's a lot of traction. We look forward to a brighter future for all of our kiddos with PWS. Let me switch the screens here. So a little bit about my family. Again, Luca is in the middle, 10 years old. Again, all of you on this call have kiddos with PWS, and I understand we probably have 2-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 25-year-olds, varying spectrum, and everybody has slightly different journey. I wanted to share kind of how it manifested the diagnosis to us. Luca had we had a normal pregnancy. Luca was born natural birth, no concerns whatsoever. It was one of those things that, as you know, low tone, he didn't cry, but they weren't overly concerned at the hospital. So after 2 days, they actually dismissed us and we went home. So 3, 4, 5 days later, it was kind of our weekly checkup was coming up. We're concerned that he wasn't feeding very well. He wasn't thriving. So we went back in and they were very concerned with the weight loss, which some of it is normal, but he had excessive weight loss even in that first week. So we got readmitted to the NICU. And then the story from there, we spent 2 to 3 weeks, every test possible. They thought initially it's SMA, so genetic testing. So we finally got the PWS diagnosis. As some of you might have experienced, I think it is a common thread or a story in our community. The first time the doctor mentioned Prader-Willi syndrome, I had to Google it. I'm like, how do you even spell it? What does that mean? And it wasn't, we didn't see a lot of good information online. So more than the diagnosis, and again, today we want to give you a little bit of hope and inspiration, but Luca's doing amazing today. We were told that he may never walk, he may not meet certain milestones. I remember the neurologist called in all the fellows and doctors. There was a line of folks that 8 to 10 people to look at him, kind of look at this case. So we didn't, I feel like the bedside manner wasn't the best at the hospital. But today, Luca is thriving. I put a few things here, but he loves school. He loves horseback riding, swimming, coloring, playing with friends. The name is appropriate. My wife and I went, I believe it was a 10-year anniversary. We were in Italy, traveled through Florence, Tuscany. We're in the little town of Lucca. So when we're naming him, Bringer of Light is what the name Lucca stands for. I believe that his name captures him. He's always smiling. He always lights up the room. Most recently, I've shared on here, he's enrolled in Special Olympics. So we've done track and soccer this spring, which is exciting. As you know, it's for a lot of our kiddos, it's hard to get them to move and have that consistent activity. So that's been incredible. He also has a little business. He makes and sells dog treats. So we all help with the making process, and we feel like it's been a great activity. Focuses his energy, and it's one of those things that's since we have a lot of anxiety around food, making the dog treats, it's interesting. It kind of channels his energy, and it's been amazing. And then he's been selling it to neighbors, friends, school, those kinds of things. So that's a little bit about Luca, and again, why I do this kind of planning. My 15-year-old Alex on the left loves soccer. We traveled the country with him. He plays at a high level. My wife Kenna, which some of you on this call probably know, I call her Vice President of Operations. Our household will not run smoothly without her. She also happens to be an occupational therapist by trade, so she works on a part-time basis. So it's been a great skill set as we've been raising Luca and helping with his development. Myself, like it was mentioned earlier, I have a degree in finance. I've worked in corporate America 15 years with Target and transition into financial planning in 2018. I hold a chartered special needs consultant designation. I would say probably 75% of my clients have a kiddo or adult with some sort of disability. At this point, I've presented to PWSA numerous times. I'm connected to a lot of autism groups, Down syndrome, Jacobson syndrome, Rett syndrome, you name it. So educate a lot of families around the country on some of the things they can do to plan for their loved ones. In terms of free time, as a family, we love traveling, and then we have lots of kids activities. So some of it's soccer related, but some of it is we just enjoy traveling. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about my family. So today, really, it's when it comes to finances, what do you worry about the most? We're gonna hit on just common questions, common concerns, and hopefully we'll try to answer some of those. Towards the end, hopefully we'll have a few minutes to we can answer some questions. I start with always with some statistics. These are from the American College of Financial Services, not to scare anyone, but and you guys can read it on the screen. 82% of caregivers are concerned that they won't have enough financial resources to last with the disabled relative's lifetime. 77% of caregivers are concerned that they won't be able to retire. Folks are concerned about their retirement being compromised. A lot of caregivers don't have enough life insurance. They're concerned if something happens to me, who is going to take over? Do we have enough resources? The one on the very bottom is interesting. Again, the study they've done in autism is a popular diagnosis, but it's kind of the lifetime cost of caring for a dependent with autism is somewhere between 1.4 and 2.4 million dollars. I actually saw a parent with PWS post, and I know there's been a lot of facts this month with PWS Awareness Month that for our kiddos, someone estimated that it may be about $6,000 to $7,000 roughly on a monthly basis between activities, therapies, medicines, travels, appointments, all of the things that we all do to take care of. A couple other statistics that we like to share is, again, a lot of us today, we're in our prime, we're working, we're healthy, we're taking care of our kiddos, but the concern becomes what happens as we age and as we approach 60s, 70s, 80s? Do we have proper long-term care coverage? So we might need help ourselves. What does that look like? And then who's gonna take care of our loved ones when we do need care or when we're no longer here? The bottom couple pieces are really related to estate planning. So 60% of people don't have a will. A lot of folks don't have a special needs trust, and only a few families work with an advisor or have a formal financial plan. So the reason I share all of this is not to scare you, but to let you know if you're thinking, gosh, we haven't started or we don't have anything in place or we don't know where to start. You're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that are kind of navigating through all of that. These are common themes that we see every week, and really as we have conversations, whether through Zoom or in person, what people are sharing and kind of concerned about. The biggest one is really we don't know where to start. It's overwhelming. And believe me, we've been there as well. I guess I remember that 0 to 1, 0 to 2. It were very challenging times. Getting connected with the right doctors, getting on the right medicines, doing the sleep studies to get approved for the growth hormone. You guys get the picture. It's really challenging. So at that time, for most families, it's kind of difficult to think, well, what do things look like when our child is 15, or what does it look like when they're an adult? But after you transition, or at least that's how it was for us, after you transition to those first couple of years, you realize, gosh, our loved one is going to need some help and support. And what does that look like? How much do we need to set aside? Where do we put it? Tax efficiency, all of those questions and come into play. A lot of other themes that we see is I run into a lot of families that, oh, we work with someone already, or we have a lot of place we're taken care of. We have a trust. And it's, well, having a trust is amazing, but have we thought about how do we properly fund it? What's going into the trust, at which point it's going to kick in? All of those things. Wealthy families don't need this kind of planning. It's kind of the biggest misconception we see in this day and age. It's probably the opposite. Based on recent law changes and just constant updates, wealthy families probably have more planning they need to do just to make sure that resources are protected and their assets can last longer for their families. So to summarize all of that, I always tell families that there is no magic formula. You start when you're ready. No one says that we have to start planning when our child is 2, 10, 15, 18 is different for everyone. But the common theme is that it's never too soon, and the sooner you start, the better you'll feel. The second part is that we're in this race for a long time. So think of this raising our kiddos with PWS. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we don't have to do everything at once today. Things would evolve over time. We would tweak things. We would update things. We would layer on. The last piece, as I share with family, and again, the reason all of you are on this call today is because of your involvement with PWSA, and we've all been there. I remember again when Luca was diagnosed, we received the booklet, we connected with the mentor, we've looked up when is the first conference, so we flew to Florida. All of those things are important. So be mindful and be aware of the community. There's so many different groups and advocacies and things that you can get involved in. There's probably someone that has already dealt with or dealing with some of the same issues that your son or daughter may have, that you can lean for support, ask questions. So keep that in mind as well. Another statistic or fact that I wanted to share, and we're seeing it as well with our kiddos, what PWS was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, how it was treated, what regimens we had is completely different. In the early 2000s, in the 2010s, in the 2020s now, again, with the recent announcements of VICAD and more to come and all the different trials and medicines, there's very good indication that even for our community, but in general, with advancements in medicine, that our kiddos will leave and live longer lives and more independent than they've ever been. So in terms of today, we're going to talk a little bit about who should be on your team, where to start, who should be involved just with the planning process, how to start on, a special needs plan and what does that look like? And then tactically, I'm going to talk a little bit about special needs trusts and ABLE accounts, what they are, how to use them, how do they work in conjunction. I think we get most of the questions around those two components. So in terms of your team, this is kind of a nice visual that explains what I do is I'm a financial advisor, so I work with families on just their overall plan, estimating cost of care, their loved one. A lot of times when we talk about the special needs trust, that would be an elder law attorney or guardianship or any other wills, power of attorneys. We want to utilize a legal professional. And then government benefits specialist. For a lot of our families, we may involve a third party. We work a lot with national care advisors. Some of you may have, if you have older children or adults, you may have a case manager, folks of that nature that can help you there as well. At some point, we might need help with just overall income taxes with the trust, corporate trustee. So we'll talk a little bit more about those as we continue on. If you have a younger child, probably the top three on the top row is going to be a little bit more prevalent today. If you have an adult at this point, you might be a little bit more interested in the corporate trustee, how do we administer it, and that piece as well. In terms of the special needs plan, so when we sit down with the family, again, it's just like going to the doctor. You can't get a prescription before you have a full checkup. So we ask a lot of questions. It's important to understand, where do we work? What kind of saving and spending habits we have? How much do we save? Where it's going? What do we envision for our future? At which point would we like to separate ourselves from work? What does that look like? We also talk about what benefits does your loved one qualify for today? What waivers might be available if we have a young one? What does that look like in the future? The estimate future cost of care, it's a tricky one. A lot of times it's hard to predict if you have a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old what kind of care or how much resources they're going to need when they're 25, 30, 35 years old. But we try to do our best and put some projections in place when mom and dad are no longer able or no longer here. Who is going to take over the care? How much do we need to have aside and kind of reverse engineer it, have that put into the plan? How do most people set funds aside for their loved ones, whether now or in the future? It's through special needs trust and the ABLE account, and we'll talk a little bit more about those here shortly. In terms of the special needs plan, again, we start with you. Some of you may work with an advisor already, which is great. So hopefully, kind of you have your short, long-term goals, retirement, that piece figured out. Where we come in and we're unique is a little bit where we look at your loved one and that what you envision for them, where they would live, estimating that cost of care, really making sure that they're part of your plan and not treated in a silo, and appropriately setting resources aside so that they can continue their same lifestyle in the future. I'm going to talk a little bit. So once we have a team in place and we have a financial plan, maybe we've contacted an elder law attorney, we have a special needs trust, we've put some things in place. We talk to our clients about documenting their wishes in a letter of intent. Those of you that are interested, you can send me an email. I can send you a digital version. I have a PDF format that we give to clients. A lot of times, they're run, you can have an elder law attorney develop it for you, but if you have one of these tools yourselves, you can save it on your desktop, you can change it, you can send it to caregivers, you can forward it to wherever you need to and make easy changes in the future. So in terms of the letter of intent, even though it's not a legal binding document, that's where you would put all the important people, doctors, resources that if something happened to the caregiver today, someone can grab that piece of paper and figure out who do we see, what medicines do we get, who do we need to call, what does that look like? But more importantly, if there's unique things which all of our children have it about your child is maybe if we do something special at night before we give them the shot, or how they swallow pills, or how they take their medicine, or when we travel, there might be a little quirk that we do. They have to take their blankie with them. Whatever that is, this is a good place to document that. So in terms of after the letter of intent, and again, that's something that I run into. Some families have one and others don't. Just think about, again, if something devastating happened to the caregiver, how do we don't want to skip a beat. So that's why it's important to have that document. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about benefits. What benefits could our loved one be eligible for? So Social Security has a few different buckets. Most people only know about retirement benefits, but what we talk about is Social Security income, or SSI. Again, if we have parents with younger children on the call, you're not familiar with it. We're going to address kind of how SSI is determined, how it's calculated, what the benefit is, and how our kiddos can take advantage. Medicaid, really, it's not only the healthcare, custodial home care, but there's a lot of other resources. A lot of Medicaid can help for maybe some modifications in the home. They can help us with caregiving outside of the actual healthcare insurance, vocational services, public school services, IEPs, all of those things are important. When we have situations where a family is not sure where to start or what to do, or maybe in the county they live or in the area they're at, there's not a good case manager, or they're not able to get resources. Again, we're able to deploy a third party. We work a lot with national care advisors. They can help us get the proper benefits, get paperwork done. They can also help us estimate cost of care. We've utilized them to help families that maybe we're moving from California to Minnesota, figuring out how do the benefits translate, what do we need to do differently. So that's where we would utilize a government benefits specialist. So the $1 million question always is, will your loved one qualify for Social Security benefits? My experience has been a lot of families that I interact with, or their first thought process, you have a young one is, well, we make too much money. That's not for us. And we're honestly, we don't want any government assistance. We don't want Social Security, so we would just leave that alone. So even though some of that may be true, there's actually instances where it could be helpful for the family. And again, if not today, down the line. So Social Security probably offers the most and highest benefits. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of different scenarios and how it works, if you're not familiar. So SSI, or Supplemental Security Income, basically if the child is under age of 18, how the government assesses eligibility is the parent's income, assets, and the household size. And unless you're around poverty limits, most families do not qualify. So we cannot get SSI for a young one if we have at least one or both working parents. In most instances, will not work. The bottom part of the slide, it's probably a little bit more applicable, and how you need to be thinking of it is, well, maybe we don't qualify today, but our loved one turns 18, then it's their income and their assets that create the eligibility. So for most of our kiddos, assuming that they don't have a job making more than $900 a month, they could qualify for SSI. They're at age 18. If you're wondering, well, how much is that, or how does that work? It changes every year. There's been a little bit of inflation adjustment. So this year the maximum is 967. Last year was 943. It was 915. So it bumps up a little bit every year. Next year will be close to that $1,000 mark if it's easier for you to kind of think of it in that fashion. So again, if we don't qualify today, we might be eligible when our kiddo turns 18. This is one where again, a lot of families don't realize how this works, but there's an additional benefit. So there's a DAC benefit. So your child may get a SSI in combination with SSDI. But basically, what we're saying is when the parents retire and elect benefits, whether one or both, if the disability has occurred before age 22, which in our community, it is for everyone, it's genetic, we've known since birth or shortly after. Basically, what we're saying is that our child can receive up to 50% of the parent's benefit, and it doesn't impact the parent's actual benefit. So, an example maybe say I am 65 tomorrow, 67, I'm retiring, and my Social Security benefit is, say, $3,000 a month, just for easy math. What we're saying here is that Luca can qualify for up to half of my benefit. So that would be 1,500 for the rest of his life, and it would not reduce my benefit whatsoever. So again, it's a little bit confusing. On the previous slide, I told you the maximum is 967. Now I'm saying like, well, it could be more. So when your child turns 18, 967 is the maximum. When mom or dad retire and elect Social Security and benefits, then that amount can increase. Why is that important? So again, we work with a lot of families. I think sometimes people don't think about, we have to think strategically. Does our mom and dad the same age? Is one older? Does one have significantly higher income? So we come up with a plan of who does it make sense to take on Social Security sooner, and who do we want to attach the child benefit to, so in order to maximize both of those benefits. So very important consideration. Again, for those of you maybe that have older children or you haven't explored that, I know a lot of times it's not heavily advertised, but it's something that you want to make sure that you're getting those additional funds through the Social Security Administration. So one thing that I want to share is, so with Social Security or Medicaid, and most of you have probably heard it at this point, but the threshold, if you don't take anything else away from this presentation today, is this will be the most important thing, is our children cannot have more than $2,000 in their name in any sort of account, or that would be considered an asset. So when we go to apply for whether it be Medicaid or SSI or both, if we have any sort of 529 account, savings account, an investment account, UTMA, whatever account may be, if it exceeds $2,000, they will not qualify for benefits. And in a lot of instances, they would, if you work hard and maybe they are on benefits already, if we have an aunt or uncle or grandparent, someone that didn't realize that rule or threshold and gave money directly to your child, it would jeopardize all the hard work you've done and the benefits that they're receiving. So keep that in mind. So we'll talk next a little bit about how do we circumvent that, or how do we, I mean, our kids need more than $2,000. So what do we do? What do we do about that? So I'm going to talk, so switching gears, one of kind of the tactical things, and we talked as part of your team that you should consider a special needs planning attorney, an elder law attorney, to create a trust. Just a little bit for those of you maybe that are new to this or don't know much about kind of how trusts work, but in terms of special needs trust, there is what we call a first party trust and a third party trust. The first party, and in our community as well, are not as common. So what that means is when we have a first party trust is that there was an award that was directly given, there was money given directly to our child. Where we see that is usually, say, if something was done wrong at the hospital, there was a wrong procedure, what have you, and there was a lawsuit and the hospital paid out $100,000, the money will go into a first party special needs trust and it will go directly to the child. The second situation, a lot of times that first parties are used as car accidents. Maybe we're in a car accident, someone else was at fault. The kiddo say, paralyzed or different challenges will have you. So there's an award. So that's the first party trust. So not as common again in our community. So for those of you that are maybe thinking, yeah, it's been on my mind. We need to connect with the lawyer. We need to set up a trust. You need to ask and you need to be thinking about a third party special needs trust. And that's what we're talking about. So why is it a third party? Just like the name suggests, it's someone else's money. So it's usually mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, other relatives. That's who is funding the special needs trust. So we spend a little bit of time talking about government benefits, SSI, Medicaid, those kinds of things. They're supposed to cover the bare essentials. The special needs trust will help pick up anything additional and really think of any lifestyle expenses that you may need. An example I would use is say in the future, if we know that, and all of you, I mean, a lot of you love Dr. Miller, and we live in Kansas, and we have to fly to Florida every year, so that won't be covered by SSI Medicaid. So a special needs trust can cover, hotel, travel, those kinds of things. So you can leverage that in the future.
Evalio, I'm just going to interrupt for just a second because I
Yeah,
see that we have a question. For
yeah.
those of you who have questions, the Q&A portion of the chat is open. So I would encourage you to go ahead and ask your questions in the Q&A. And when Evalio finishes his presentation, we'll go ahead and get to those. So Holly, if you see that, go ahead and put your question in the Q&A. Sorry, Evalio. Thanks. Go ahead.
No worries. Thank you. And yes, we'll have some time at the end. So be thinking of questions. Let me know. And I'll also leave my contact information. So you'll have my email, phone number. So feel free to connect that way as well. So, kind of on the third party special needs trust, we can have variable level of resources available and set aside for our children and still receive benefits. So that is really why we're doing it. The $2,000 rule does not apply for these trusts. So in terms of cost efficient ways. I run into a lot of families. How do we fund a special needs trust? A lot of times we use retirement accounts, we use business interests, we use cash. I mean, you can use real estate, you can use a lot of different things. For a lot of our clients, we leverage life insurance. We can create a set death benefit that would pay out at some point in the future, whether mom or dad is gone. And we also do second to die policy when both parents are gone, that will kick in and fund in the special needs trust. As a clarification, a lot of the trusts today, just depending on how old the parents are and how old the children or adults are, a lot of our clients have or will set up a special needs trust and we'll help them find an attorney to execute that. But the trust is not funded till later down in life. So there's no reason, a lot of times, if we have parents in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even sometimes 70s, to have an active trust, it just creates a lot of paperwork and taxes and a lot of different things in motion that would be funded more down the line. So the next common tool that has a little bit more flexibility, and we want to spend a little bit of time talking about, is ABLE accounts. Hopefully you've heard of them. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. These accounts were established 10 years ago. So it was actually parents with kiddos with Down syndrome went to Congress and said, we don't like the $2,000 rule. Our kids have very high medical needs. We need to set some more money aside. Where can we put it? Their benefits are important. We want to protect them. That's how ABLE accounts came about. There was recent legislation that was passed. It's already on my slide, but it takes effect in 2026. It used to be that the disability has to have occurred before age 26. It's now 46 that you could establish an ABLE account. When we have an ABLE account, we can contribute money and it does not impact Medicaid eligibility or if we're receiving SSI. Currently, in terms of ABLE accounts, you can contribute up to $19,000 annually. It's part of the gifting guideline. Again, Dorothea and I were talking briefly a little bit before the session. There's some movement and legislation out there is that Can we allow additional funding into the ABLE accounts? Can we have, inflation riders, things of that nature? So they have been updated already numerous times just over the past decade. But again, if you haven't heard of them, and I run into a lot of families that haven't, it is a great tool. The third bullet point I have there is if the child or adult is receiving SSI, we do not want the account to grow more than $100,000. Again, there's no restrictions for the Medicaid piece, but for SSI, it's $100,000. And then one way to think of it is the ABLE account, the easiest thing to compare it to that most people are familiar with is it's like a Roth account. So it's after tax dollars that we contribute. We can have it invested depending on your state or the platform. There will be multitude of choices. Depending on, again, age of your child and how conservative or aggressive you like to be, you can select different options. But again, distributions are tax-free. So we don't have to worry about any gains taxes. So it makes it really nice. I always share we have had a Able account for Luca, gosh, for the last 5, 6 years at this point. We really enjoy it. In our state, and again, depends on your state, we get a state tax income deduction. So there's not a federal, but we get a state tax income deduction if you contribute up to $6,000. A lot of times, we would contribute to that point because we know we get the deduction. In addition, we know that there's some expenses like his hypnotherapy is not covered, some of his travel, he has a tutor, those kinds of things that we use the Able account to fund down the line as well. So it helps with budgeting, but it also helps you just with overall savings, taxes, all of those components. So I'm a big proponent on the Able account. We do not open Able accounts for clients. So that is one. It's very easy. If you are not familiar, you can go to ablenrc.org. It's the National Resource Center for Able accounts. It's very intuitive, very easy to use. You can select your state, and it will tell you what you need to know, how to open it. Is there a Medicaid back provision? How much you can contribute? What are the investment options? I tell families to open an Able account. You don't need an advisor. We recommend that you do it yourself. It's run by the State Department. One caveat that I like to share, your child can only have one Able account. You would put their Social Security number and you could open the account within 10 minutes. Most plans require 25, 50, something like that dollars to get one started. So again, even after we hop off here today, if you wanted to start one, you can do so. The reason I bring it up, a lot of times, maybe we have a divorced family or separated, or we have grandma and grandpa want to start an Able account. The important consideration there is that our child can only have one. You can have multiple people contribute into the Able account, but there's only one with that Social Security number. A little bit more about the Able accounts. Some of you, and kind of like in our case, we have a 15, almost 16-year-old. He's had a 529 account for a while. We anticipate him going to college. So a lot of folks, like for Luca, for example, we're not sure. Will he be able to go to college? Will he maybe go to a community college? So again, it's a good tool. We can save for education, but unlike the 529 plans, it has more flexibility. We can use it for housing, transportation, technology, travel, medical expenses, really anything that improves his quality of life that directly impacts him. So keep that in mind. On the Able accounts. I have a little disclaimer on the bottom. Depending on your state, if your child is on a Medicaid waiver or it's an older child and is on Medicaid, depending on your state, there may be a Medicaid payback provision. So what that means is if the unthinkable happens and your loved one passes away, basically Medicaid says, well, you've been receiving benefits for the last 5, 10, whatever years. So we get access to your account basically to pay back for what benefits you have received. So take a look at that. A lot of states are going away with that. I know in our state, again, through legislation that was repealed, I believe it was last year, so there's no longer the Medicaid payback. You also don't have to select your own state's account. So if you don't like your state and you want to pick a different one, you can definitely do so. Most states at this point, I think there's only five or six that don't have it. I think the Dakotas, Wisconsin, there's only a few states that don't have an ABLE account. So again, you could choose whichever state you like. So ablenrc.org, and again, you can shoot me an email. We can chat more about that. It's a great resource, but you can do some research, and we'll give you some more information on the ABLE accounts. This next slide try to provide kind of a summary of this is probably very popular question. Well, Ivilo, what do we need? Do we need an ABLE account? Or do we need a trust? Like, how do we set up our plan? And the answer is it depends. But for most families, they would have both, and they work very well in conjunction. Again, I reference us. We've had an ABLE account for a while, and we've had a special needs trust as well for a while. So why both, or what does that look like? So we've already kind of touched on some of these. The ABLE account, easy to use. You can set it up yourself. You could open it up today. There's really very nominal fees for the State Department to manage it. With the Special Needs Trust, more complex. We need to hire an attorney that works in this area, that understands all the different provisions to build the Special Needs Trust for us. A big difference with the ABLE accounts we discussed is we can only contribute up to $19,000 annually. With the Special Needs Trust, we don't have restrictions. So again, for a lot of our clients, whether maybe it's an old IRA, maybe it's a commercial building, maybe it's a $2 million policy, maybe whatever the case may be, could be designated to fund the Special Needs Trust. So one way that I think of it is the ABLE account is more your checking operational account that we can use in the interim. It's easy to use. We get some tax advantages. And the Special Needs Trust is long-term inheritance, big savings, future cost of care line item. So we mentioned a little bit already, depending on your state, the ABLE account may have a Medicaid payback provision. When you have a third-party special needs trust that you have drafted and paid for, and you get to designate if something happens to your loved one, where the funds go next. So whether it's other children, your favorite charity, however you like to have those funds distributed. So people like knowing when you have a third-party special needs trust that where their money is going. Also, with the trust, I know we did that was our thought process. Our 15/16-year-old, we anticipate him going to college, getting a job, launching, being a successful member of society. And where with Luca, even though he's doing amazing, we're not sure exactly what that looks like. So on your funding plan and legacy and inheritance, we have a different percentage of what kind of assets are going to go to one versus the other because of the cost of care and just future needs that Luca may have. So that's again, it's if you haven't done it, it takes time. It's lengthy conversations. It's very thought-provoking, but it's very helpful, and I think you have peace of mind after setting up those documents. At the end, so we've talked a lot about how do we plan for our loved one? Where do we start? What benefits can they get? What do they qualify for? All of those things. So it's important. We always tell families is don't forget to plan for yourself. Don't forget to take care of yourself. But the better, the better planned you are, and the better you're taking care of yourself, the more helpful you'll be for your child, not only today, but decades down the line. So to kind of recap what we covered is this area of planning is complex. So it's important to to have a team. And if you don't have one, that's perfectly okay. We provide a lot of referrals, but families that try to do it all on their own, it could be overwhelming. There's a lot of nuances and there's a lot of changes and laws and things that are constantly need updated. An example I use when I work with families that maybe have a little bit older child, they're like, yeah, we set up a special needs trust, when we got married, whatever that was, and in 2000, so we set it up. Well, at that time, we had one child, now we have four children. At that point, able accounts didn't exist, so some of those provisions are not into the special needs trust. So some of those documents, even though you think it's a one and done. It doesn't mean you have to do them annually, but at some point they need to be updated to make sure they're reflecting the current environment and doing what you want them to do. In terms of a corporate trustee, I wanted to touch on a little bit more. A lot of families would choose a family member, a relative, a good friend, someone to oversee. And you have to think of it in two buckets, really. There's kind of the medical and healthcare, and then there's also the financial and paying their bills and whatever they need. So in a lot of instances, that's two separate people. So you may have, a sister, a brother, or someone that's really good and loves your child that would take care of them, but maybe they're not the ones that would actually make decisions on kind of the funding and their finances, or vice versa. You may have a really good family member that would do a good job and be fiscally responsible and manage the checkbook, if you would, but they would not do a good job of going to all the appointments and the medical care and providing all the necessities that they need. So the reason we're talking about the corporate trustees, at some point, if you don't have a family member you trust, or we run into a lot, well, as we're aging, they're aging as well. Would that be appropriate? And what does that look like? You could leverage a corporate trustee to manage the special needs trust. The only disadvantage with that is that it's associated with a fee, but there's a lot of advantages. It provides peace of mind. It provides checks and balances and making sure that things are done correctly, that the money is spent where we want it to be spent, and they have errors and omissions and liability and all those things. If there's a mistake, they would fix it and they'll file the proper paperwork and tax return. So keep that in mind as well. And then we talked about, yeah, it's important at some point to start thinking about, well, maybe we've met with an advisor, or maybe we haven't. Maybe we're doing great. We're saving money in our 401ks, or we're running our business, or whatever that is. It's great, but we also have to think about, well, one day we're going to stop, and what does that look like for us? But also our little one, or as they age, what would it look like for their care? We always talk about families. It's if we're no longer here, Luca's still going to go to his therapy. So someone is going to have to drive him. Someone's going to have to fly him to Florida, and more than likely, they're not going to do it for free. So what does that look like if we're not around? How much should we have aside to make sure that those things don't stop? In terms of benefits, again, just as a reminder, if you hopped on late, don't get discouraged. If you have a young one, if you have a 2, 3, 4 year old, and you're like, yeah, they told us no, or depending on your state, it varies so much. I mean, I have clients, and if you're in some of those states, in Colorado, California, Wisconsin, there's Katie Beckett waivers, there's home community-based waivers, we're paying, family members to be caregivers. There's medical insurance. There's a lot of benefits. And there are states like ours, there's a 10-year waiting list, and your child has to be 5 in order to be even on the waiting list. So depending on where you're at, there may not be much available, but the main point is, if you do things correctly, if you save money in the right places, if you keep below that $2,000 threshold, the benefits will come down the line, and there's a slew that will be available in the future. And then lastly, we talked about tactically, the two best tools for families currently are able accounts and special needs trust. So depending on your situation, one might be better for you than the other, but ideally over time, or at some point, um, you would have both because they serve different purposes, and we kind of talked about those things as well. So we're coming up on time. We have a few minutes for questions, and then I'll leave my information on the screen as well. Let me know, yeah, if you like to connect further or private, send me an email or shoot me a voicemail. And then also with the letter of intent, I can send you a digital copy if you like, or any other information that might be helpful. And as a disclaimer, I'm not presenting this year, but I will be in Phoenix. That's the plan for now. Our whole family is going. So if you're there, stop by. I do serve dozens of families in the PWS community. Not sure who's on the call today, but if I don't, would love to meet you. Or some of you I've just met through Zooms and meetings, and it'll be great to connect in person as well. So, Dorothea, I'll circle back with
Thank
you. Maybe you
you.
can help me with questions and
I will. Thank you so much, Evalia. That was incredible. Just a lot of information. Um, a lot of information. So we have 11 questions in the queue. I'm just going to go ahead and go in order. If we don't get to your question today, please make sure that you take down Evalio's information and send him an email so that you can ask him directly if we don't get a chance to get to you today. So I'm going to go ahead and start in order. First question, if a child receives SSI, can some of the monthly SSI monies be put into the trust?
that is a good question, and the answer is technically no. Because SSI, how they view it, that benefits really, it's meant for food and housing, is meant for basic necessities. So then putting that money into the trust where the trust gets used for anything else supplemental, um, it doesn't work. So I would stay away from that.
Okay, next question. Can you clarify? Sorry, it's written a little bit hard for me to read. He's disabled adults on SSI. Currently, the max is 967. I don't know if I'm going to read this correctly. It says will change to half parents' retirement SSI benefit, starting parent retirement on. Okay,
Yeah, I think I understand.
okay, okay.
Um, Yes, that was one of the slides we chatted. So currently, when a child turns 18, assuming they don't have a full-time job and making $50,000 a year, which a lot of our kiddos unfortunately will not at that age, they will be either students or staying at home. They would qualify for SSI, which is 967. I think that where the question is going, when mom and dad retire, say they're 67, 65, whatever it is, the child would qualify for up to half of mom and dad's benefit. So whatever your benefit is, that would be the additional dollars. And sometimes it would come from two sources. So it would be a combination of SSI and SSDI, but either way, the total amount would be half of your benefit. If you're approaching retirement age or not, they have changed it. Maybe this is old news for everyone, but Social Security used to send statements, paper statements to everyone's house once a year.
Mhm.
I think 5 years ago, at some point they stopped. Maybe it was the Paperwork Reduction Act. I don't know.
Yeah.
But basically, you can go online to ssa.gov, and if you don't have a profile, I'll encourage you to get one. But it would tell you your work history, your credits, all of that, and it would tell you your retirement age, and it would give you estimates at 62, 67, 70. So that will give you an idea of what am I looking at when I retire, whether I'm 40, 50, or 60. It will give you, and then if you're younger today, clearly depends on what does that look like over the next 20 years and what your income's going to be. But you can get a little bit of an estimate if that helps of, okay, my total benefit is 2,800, so my child could get up to 1,400 or whatever that looks like. And the last piece to that question, I know we're getting in the weeds, but we can also help figure out, does it make sense for mom to elect first or dad? Who has the higher benefit? What ages we have? So we can run basically a calculator to determine how do we maximize the total benefit. Hope that answers the question, but I think that's what we're asking.
I hope so. I think so. The next one is about special needs trusts. Do they easily transfer from state to state? What if someone moves?
Yeah, good question. So an active trust will have a situs, so it will be recorded with that state. So if it's not active, it's really not a problem. Once you have it established, and say if we decide, we used an example, we're moving, we've been in California for 10 years, but we're going to Minnesota now, and we're retiring there, we're going to stay there. At some point, it's not a bad idea to contact a local elder law attorney, and then from a fee perspective, it'll be a lot cheaper to essentially make sure that things are still matching up and get it updated versus no, we don't have to start from scratch. The work you've done and the provisions, the main provisions that the special needs trust enables is really how does money flow and how do we protect benefits and who we've designated to be in charge of our kiddo. So that doesn't really change from state to state, but there may be some specific things in the new state that that attorney can help tweak if that.
Right. Okay, our next question. Where does the money within a special needs trust go after our disabled child passes? Does it go to the state or does it go to the federal government?
So for the trust, is that?
Yes, for if someone sets up a special needs trust and their child that it was set up for passes and there is money still in the trust, where does that money go?
Yeah, so for a special needs trust, the family gets to decide where the money goes. So it stays within, if you would.
Okay.
So, an example would be, yeah, if something happened to one of my kids and us, then it would go to my other kid or whoever we have designated next in line. A lot of times, if you're charitable inclined, you can have it donated that way. But yeah, it stays within your family. The maybe the where the confusion came probably is with the ABLE accounts. Some states have a Medicaid payback provision. So if we've been receiving benefits and we pass away, then basically it triggers, hey, you have to pay back. There's some money left. We would use that to fund. One workaround, if you would, I tell families that, I mean, you can't have huge amounts of money, but if we have some money left, you can use it for final expenses, celebration of life. Like you could use even the ABLE account to pay for some things at end of life. So
Okay.
not to be morbid, but we could spend some of that money down even on the future. And that's why I shared the ABLE accounts. Think of them as those operating accounts. They're not going to have millions of dollars if we had them. They'll be kind of more fluid where the special needs trust would have your main inheritance that will still be protected and stay with your family.
Got it. Okay, next question. Can PWS individuals qualify for half your retirement, Social Security, and SSI benefits? What about a 401k? Does that go to a third-party trust?
It can. That is up to the family to decide based on other assets, taxes, estate planning, how we want to handle it. Just to provide clarification, it was part of the Secure Act 2.0. So if you're not familiar, some legislation changed where it said, and some of you unfortunately may have had parents that passed away. So say if you had a parent that passed away and left you their IRA, 401k, whatever you want to call it, well, the government enacted provisions a few years ago that said that you have to withdraw that money within a 10-year period. You will get a step up in basis, so you won't be accountable for all the growth that they've experienced, but you have to get it within 10 years so that they can tax it and get their benefits. For special needs, it changed because hopefully someone was thinking in that fashion as well. It's a long-term dependent, so they can still have it how the provisions were before. They can stretch the distributions over their lifetime versus the 10-year period. So I hope that answers the question. But if we have a 401k that's designated to a special needs trust, it would still be required to kick off annual distributions. But say if we have a 25-year-old and expectancy is 85, we have a long span, so we don't have to create huge chunks of money where the opposite is not true. An example would be if the child with PWSA, we have $1 million that was allocated, and if they had to get 100,000 every year, and they don't need that kind of money today, it creates kind of a set of other circumstances. So it depends. It's not ideal, but you can. I mean, yeah, you can, but that's currently how it is. Is for a child with disabilities, you can or adult, you can have lifetime distribution.
Okay, I know we're at time. I have one more question that I'm going to ask. So if this is not your question and you're still waiting, please make sure that you take Evalio's email information so that you can email him directly. The last question is, are we able to use an ABLE account to pay for special needs trust planning, financial advisors, lawyers, etc.?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and the easy answer is yes. So you can use the ABLE account specifically for estate planning, what have you, because it's for the benefit of your child and protecting benefits. So, um,
Great
good
question.
question.
And I'm sorry, folks, I know that we have a lot of other questions in the queue. Evalio, if you have time, I'm happy to go through these and give you an opportunity to answer. I just want to
Yeah,
be cognizant of everybody that's on the webinar and your time. So you just let me know if you have time right now. We can go through them. If not, we
yeah,
can.
we could do a few more questions. That would be fine.
Okay, great. Um, okay, and I think we answered this one. I think you answered this with one of your other questions. It was, where do the ABLE account funds go after the passing of our disabled loved ones? And I think that depends on the state that you're in, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Um,
there's movement out there legislature-wise. I think there's every state is pushing. Ideally, down the line, we won't even have to answer that question, that there won't be a Medicaid payback provision, but it still exists today in some states.
And you know what, guys, I would encourage all of you who are here today, if that's something that, if you're interested in getting involved in, pay attention to the state advocacy work that's being done right now on behalf of people with intellectual disabilities and intellectual developmental disabilities and Medicaid state by state. That definitely is something that's being talked about state by state. So please, uh, pay attention and stay involved. Okay, can you set up both the ABLE and third-party special needs trust account? I believe the answer for that is yes. Wait,
Yes.
I'm not sure if this is a question asking if Evalio can set those things up or if a person can set those things up.
Um, A person, yes. If it's asking for me, I can help and guide with the ABLE account. And as I mentioned, ABLE NRC, the state, so I can walk a family through it. It's very self-explanatory and easy to do, so I can help you with that. But no, we don't set up and manage those funds, and it's to your benefit. You don't have to pay extra fees. It's very nominal and to the states. And with the special needs trust, I'm not an attorney, so no, I cannot set it up, but I do provide referrals, so a lot of times if families feel like, well, who do I go to or who do I find? Based on your state, I can send you a couple of names, and then you can reach out, interview them, see what's their timeline, what they charge, what experience they have, who they work with, and you get to decide kind of how do we want to do it. In terms of attorneys, this comes often. We have a lot of families that had something set up, as I alluded to years ago, so they need someone to look it over, and maybe we don't have the special needs trust. So sometimes, depending on the attorney, it would be a smaller fee. And then most of our younger families, it's a full-blown estate plan, will, powers of attorney, special needs trust, all of those things. But I don't help with that to clarify, but I can lead you in the right direction, if needed.
Great, thank you. I think this question has been answered. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure. Is the Medicaid clawback still alive? I think the answer to that is it depends which state you live in.
Yes, it's still out there for some of the states. And again, it really depends on your situation and where. So, for example, say if I like right now, I mean, my son is 10,
Mhm.
so we have not received any Medicaid money. So even if my state has a Medicaid payback, we've not even encountered that yet. So it's like there's no one to pull for it because we haven't drawn any. 10 years from now, that could change and be different, but also the law could change and they could, just like they've done in our state, not required any longer. So it really depends on your family situation. But one way, like I mentioned, is for family that are overly concerned, you could almost have some money there operational. And like I said, you could I mean, even if we had 10,000 left, it would help cover burial expenses, not to get morbid here, but like some of the money will get spent at the end. We just don't necessarily want to have 200,000 in it or whatever.
Right. Okay, what is the first step to change our son's current SSI benefits to my husband's retirement SSI benefits?
Social Security Administration. So a lot of times it's setting an appointment, educating them what you're trying to do. Don't take the first answer. Sometimes we're experiencing that they've gone through cutbacks, lots of turnover. So the first employer you may, it's kind of one of those things where asking for a supervisor, a lot of times if you're not getting the answer you know you should be, it might be helpful. And then if you're really having a hard time or it's not working, that's where we'll deploy like a national care advisor, or there are companies, third parties that would charge a fee, but they know exactly which forms to fill, who to go to, and keep you abreast of the process and would take care of it for you. So that's an option for some families as well.
Okay. And Evalio, just let me know when you need to go because we have three questions left. Um, okay, if a family member leaves an inheritance directly to my child with PWS, can I move that money into the special needs trust to avoid the asset being controlled or counted for benefit purposes, or would that money need to be spent down?
So the answer is if we're proactive would be the best. So an example would be if we know grandma and grandpa are ill, they're in their 80s, they're not going to live forever. And we have the conversation, not to pry where every family is different, but if we say, hey, if you wanted to do something for Junior for his care, we have established a special needs trust. Here's the language, dated, whatever, that can you put it in your estate planning that a 10% or all of it or whatever, if you that's your intention, it would save us all a lot of trouble. That's the best case scenario. That we're open as a family, we're chatting, and we're taking care of it ahead of time. If the money, and this happens, if generous aunt writes a check or passes away and it comes directly, then in a lot of circumstances may have to require hiring a lawyer, paying more fees. Hopefully, we have a special needs trust established so we can tie it in. Or if we don't, that's where it really starts issues. It's like, well, we don't even have a special needs trust to get it started. So the short answer is proactive planning, and that's kind of the theme of the workshop, helps resolve some of these things. Because yes, it could trigger if a check directly written to your child comes and Social Security, Medicaid, all those agencies get abreast of whatever that benefit is. There are instances where they would require you to spend it down, or we would lose Medicaid, so we lose, and then it takes months to get back on. It's a nightmare.
So if you already have a special needs trust in place and you haven't done the deep dive with your family members, then, maybe it's easier, maybe it's not, but proactive planning is the best course of action.
And I get it. I think this is just good conversation. There are a lot of families that are very closed off. It's kind of like, yeah, we mean well, and we have a lot of assets. We're going to leave, but we're not talking about it. Kind
Hmm.
of like, when we're gone, you'll figure it out. And other families are like, well, this makes a lot of sense. What's the best way to do this correctly? So hopefully, at some point, if your family is open to it, you could at least have the conversation. We all know Junior has needs and this and that and the other. If you guys have any intention of doing something, here's what I would like you to use. That's the language where it goes, and it protects all his benefits. That's all.
Okay, two more questions, Evalio. This one I think is a clarification. To clarify, can individuals qualify for SSI? Uh,
Oh, I
half of
see.
your, it says to clarify, can individuals qualify for SSI, half your Social Security and your 401k benefits, all three? So
If I understand this correctly, it's not all three. So the answer will be no.
no.
You don't get your 967, yours, and another half.
Right.
The half, assuming that it's larger than the 967, would supplement a few $100s in addition. So it's not, yeah, you will keep yours. It's just, it's called a lot of times, maybe this helps, kind of the terminology, they call it a bump up sometimes. Basically, we will get a bump up from the 967 to the retirement benefit for our child when we're retired.
The last question, and I'm going to go ahead and ask this, but I believe that from a time constraint, this might be something that this individual might be better off contacting you. They're asking for a bit of a deeper dive into the $2,000 max for the ineligibility of SSI or Medicaid, and I think that's a much longer discussion and perhaps personal, depending on which state that you live in. But Evalio, you're happy to you can take it.
The simple answer there is we don't want to save money in our child's name exceeding the $2,000 limit. That's the simple answer. Any account you think of, unless it's enabled or it's tied to a special needs trust, it doesn't work and it can create issues if not now, in the future. And then again, we have a lot of families that have multiple children. Every child has a 529. Their little one with their advisor said, well, you should get a 529 for them as well. Well, they never plan on going to college. They come to be 18. They figured out, oh, we'll go get benefits. Well, we have 30,000 in their 529 plan. As Sai said, will come back to us in a few years when you spend that down.
Right.
That's kind of what we're saying is even if you're well-intentioned, there's other tools that we reviewed, Abel's, Trust, keeping it in different places to protect the much needed benefits that even if you don't qualify today, with hopes that you would in the future.
And I think I'm just going to add on to that because, I have a 7-year-old. For our younger families, if we have younger families that are joining us today or listening to us today, something a lot of things that we like to do when our kids are little is set up a bank account for them. And when folks are saying, what can I get them for a birthday or for every different occasion throughout the year, and deposit it in their account. We have to think about that a little bit differently. Because what that will count towards different eligibility requirements, whether it's Medicaid or SSI down the road. So there are other ways for us to do things, and we need to be a little bit more cognizant as we move
This is a
forward.
good segue. I'll just add one more thing, but the Able accounts, again, we love it. I mean, we use ours all the time. They have a little link you can send. It's called You Gift Able. So for a birthday or a special occasion, you can say, we have enough toys. Hunter doesn't need any more stuff. If you like to do something nice, you can contribute to his account that protects his benefits. So some people are very, very open to that. So it's like, oh, that makes sense. Just like all of you probably experience it. My wife and I are invited to someone our age to their birthday party tomorrow, and it basically says absolutely no gifts, but here's a charity you can donate to if you like. It's like perfect.
Perfect. Right. Okay, that's great. And we got through all the questions. Thank you so much for spending a little bit more time with our community. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who was able to join us today, everyone who was able to listen to this recording. So, Evalio, thank you so much for your time. Your experience is invaluable to our community. I know it means so much to so many of us. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and of course, and hope to see you all soon. It was great to share some tidbits. Hopefully, it was helpful, and everybody learned a little something.